Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. I have here Emily Thiroux Threatt. She is an international best-selling author, podcast host, and founder of the Grief and Happiness Alliance, has turned profound personal loss into a mission of comfort and support. Through her books, The Grief and Happiness Handbook and Loving and Living Your Way Through Grief, along with her Grief and Happiness podcast and card deck, Emily provides valuable resources for those navigating the complexities of grief. Drawing on her experiences of losing two husbands and numerous loved ones, she emphasizes love, optimism, and joy in facing life. With a master's degree in English focusing on writing, she has channeled her expertise into helping others use writing as a tool for processing grief. Beyond her work, Emily enjoys gardening, creating art, and walking the beaches of Maui, where she resides, embodying the very practices of happiness she teaches. Aloha, Emily.
Aloha. I'm happy to be here today.
Yes, me too. And I was just sharing with you that everyone has experienced grief, whether it's a loss of a loved one, whether it's loss of a job. For me, in my alcoholic background, this is going to sound strange. Being sober now almost 7 years, I actually grieved my old self. So I had to although I didn't miss myself that much because I'm so much happier now, I literally had to grieve myself, my old self, because that was my comfort and my safety. But but today we're talking about grief of loved ones. And I mean, losing two husbands. I mean, I couldn't imagine that. Like, no, I couldn't imagine that. I don't know what I would do. But my father was murdered when I was a baby. So my mom experienced that grief, as me as a little girl. But I experienced, of course, family members. I'm wearing purple because my aunt had passed away from cancer last year, and she wanted everyone to wear purple for her funeral. And so instead of black, because that was her favorite color. And so that's why I'm wearing purple today, just to give her love. Yes, Thea, we love you. But I would love for you just to go ahead and share actually a little bit about your story and your journey and what led you to focus on grief and happiness in your work.
Well, I'd be happy to do that because it was my grief that got me started in all this. I have had a rich life with many different careers and jobs that I've really loved. And when I reached the point that after my second husband died, that all that was kind of behind me, I was like, what do I do now? So I started, as you said, I teach writing. I love writing. I've written college textbooks, and I love everything about writing. And when my first husband, who died, Jacques, we'd been married 22 years, and he was actually a bioethicist, and his specialty was the ethics of living and dying. And he taught all the nurses at the local college the class that they had to have on death and dying. And he brought hospice to the community. So he was really into this, and we talked about it a lot. And but at the same time, he was sick for quite a few years, or had challenges, but the last 2 years were especially hard. And during that time, I didn't realize that he was going through all the hospitalizations, all the things that he had, because he thought he was getting better. He thought that doing what the doctor told him would make it so he was better. And I finally, I didn't know that. And he asked me that one day, and I couldn't lie to him. I said, no, you're not getting better. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. And that was like giving him permission to die, because he died about 2 hours after that.
Mm.
So that really bothered me. I felt a lot of guilt about not having had conversations about him and his mortality, which it was kind of surprising to me that we hadn't, because of his background and what he did. And we talked about everybody else's death and mourning and all that sort of thing, but he hadn't ever really applied it to him and to our relationship. So it was really tough dealing with that loss after he was gone. We'd been married 22 years, and He was a lot older, so I knew we probably wouldn't go the 50 years that I would like to, but it still seemed too soon for me. And I made up my mind that I would never get married again because that was it. We had a great marriage and everything was wonderful. And then a few years later, I met Ron and fell in love and we got married. So we were together for 10 years before he died. And he had lived in Maui a long time before I knew him. And he brought me here on our honeymoon because he loved Maui so much. And we always saw it from the perspective of a local instead of as a tourist because he knew people here. He knew the places to go that the people who live here go. And it was always so beautiful and comfortable for me. And when 2 years before he transitioned, he said, you know, I would really like to be living in Maui again. And so we lived in Ventura, California, and we just sold our house, packed everything up, moved over here, and it was great. It was a wonderful place to be for his last 2 years. And I really love it here. It's fabulous. But when he died, not only was it the loss of him, it was then I was dealing with the loss of my life before in California because although I was making new friends, especially with my neighbors, I've never been so close to my neighbors as I have been here. It's just wonderful. And the Hawaiian word for family is ohana. And we say this, it's our ohana. So that's really nice and it's supportive, but at the same time, it was like, okay, what do I do now? And so I started writing about it a lot to me, not for anybody else to read, but journaling. And every time I'd think of something, instead of just letting it bounce around in my head, I would write it out. And the more I did that, I thought, you know, this kind of writing would really help other people. And so that led me to start doing writing groups and on grief and loss. And I had not too long, a few months after Ron died, a very good friend of his on the mainland died, and they were neighbors. And I thought, gee, if I was there, I would have been going over to her house all the time and helping her out, whatever it was that she needed. And I couldn't do that from 5 hours away across the ocean. So I thought, what am I going to do that's going to help her the most? So I thought I'm going to write her every week for the first year talking about all the different things that she could be experiencing since I had so much experience with having husband die. And he was so much younger than Ron. And I knew that she wouldn't have had any idea that he was going to be dying when he did. So when I decided that, I thought I better see if I can write out 52 things that I can write about. So I won't run out before the end of the year. And I was surprised at how easily those 52 things came forward. And I also recognized when I had it written out like that it was an outline for a book since I'm a writer. So I went to work on writing my book, and I published the first half of that. My publishers did it during the pandemic. It wasn't too long into the pandemic, and that was quite an adventure. And I had to move all my writing classes online, and I was very happy about the book and my writing classes and what I was doing, but something was missing. I couldn't quite figure it out. And when Jacques had died, I found a book called Happy for No Reason by Marcy Shimoff. And it helped me a lot because up until that point, I was thinking, I have nothing to be happy about. I'm not going to smile, and it was not a good place to be. So I ran across the book again after my first book was out, and I thought, happiness, that's what's missing. I need to incorporate happiness into there so people can see that they can grieve and be happy at the same time. So Marcy actually had a course that you could take to become a certified Happy for No Reason trainer. So I took it and I did. And the good thing about her course is she wasn't teaching us how to teach her class that she doesn't have. She was teaching us all the different things that we could use to help teach others all these happiness practices, and that we were allowed to use any of the research she's done, any of the exercises she created, anything that she's got in the line of happiness, however we wanted to serve the world. And before she opened these classes, she had been going herself all over the world. She was a New York Times bestseller. I think she was the first and maybe still the only person who had 3 books on the top of the New York Times bestseller list at the same time for quite a while. So she's really well known internationally and has taught so many people. And she thought the way that she could magnify that is to teach other people how to teach happiness. And so I was really glad that I added that. And that led to my Grief and Happiness podcast. It led to my second book, which is the Grief and Happiness Handbook. It led to my organization that I established called the Grief and Happiness Alliance, which meets online on Zoom every week, where we write together. We talk about what we wrote and we learn a happiness practice. And it led to the formation of the Grief and Happiness Alliance nonprofit organization. It's a long name. it, uh, it led to that because the people that helped me in the creation process of all this agreed with me that people shouldn't have to pay for that kind of support, peer support that I offer through those gatherings. And so they said they'd pay the expenses, they'd earn the money to pay the expenses so that this can be a gift to the people that come. And it's going very well. We've been meeting every week for 2 years now, and we've got some people who've been there over 2 years that have been there since the beginning. And then we have new people join us all the time. And I really have found my purpose in the work that I'm doing now. And I'm so grateful for that.
That is beautiful, and you are doing amazing work, and I'm so happy that you found your purpose. And it's sad that sometimes that we have to go through so much pain in order for us to go and find our purpose. But you are helping others, and that's what brings so much joy to, I think, to myself too, when I'm helping others and how you're helping others. It doesn't it bring that joy? It's like, wow, okay, I'm helping someone go through this process, and I've already gone through this. So I know how to help others go through this as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. The having being around people who get you, like
Yeah.
with these gatherings that we have, that nobody is society in general tends to not intentionally, but they tend to be a little bit dismissive of other people's grief. They'll come to a funeral or a celebration, and that'll be nice, and then you won't see them again. They could have been
Mhm.
friends for years, and they don't know what to do with someone grieving, so they don't call, they don't come by, they don't do that. And I've had so many people tell me that they felt like their whole foundation was taken away with the death of a loved one. And I know that people who are grieving we can talk to each other, because we know what we're talking about. We know what feelings and emotions and things come up. And the gatherings we have are so wonderful. And what I like best about them is by the end they're just an hour long. And by the end of that hour, everybody in the group's smiling every week.
Oh, wow.
And
Everyone's happy. Yes. And you were
mhm.
mentioning, journaling and how it's such a powerful tool for healing. What makes it so powerful in your opinion?
In my opinion, when someone's grieving, especially, you spend a lot of time in your head. You
Mhm.
know, things just bounce around in your head, and that monkey mind of yours can tell you things over and over and over till you start believing them, and things like, I'm so sad, I can't get up, I can't go out, I can't eat, I can't, all this, I can't. And that's not the truth. That's just what's bouncing around in your head. And when you start writing those things out and you write something like, I can't eat, well, of course you can eat,
Yeah.
You put that, you can choose what you eat and you can eat things that are healthy. And I know that really got it for me because I chose after Jacques died, I was having a hard time with eating, not having a hard time. I just wasn't paying any attention to it and losing a lot of weight. And I thought, you know what? I found through journaling, I can eat anything I want to eat. And so I started doing that. And what I was drawn to was good, healthy foods and not large quantities of them. And it changed my health a lot, as we had been on a dialysis diet with Jacques, and that's probably the worst diet in the world as far as being healthy and nutritious. It's just bad because it seems like anything that's good for you is bad for your kidneys when you're on dialysis. So it helped me get back into shape. It helped me not talk myself out of doing things, because I had done that before. I wasn't doing anything physically to take care of myself. And my daughter had a friend who was a trainer, and she said, you need to go work out with him. And I don't want to work out with anybody.
Yeah.
But I went to him, and he was a private trainer. So it was just the two of us. And since it was just the two of us and nobody was watching me, like at a gym where everybody's,
Yeah.
and I would be real self-conscious, I was able to slowly build up my stamina, my energy, my health, and that was good. And before she convinced me that I really had to go, I was listening to my mind that says, "You're not going to a gym, everybody's going to look at you," and all these other negative self-talk things. So the journaling helps you find your truth, so to speak, and write about what really is important to you, what you really do um, strive for, what your ideal life would be. You can write all that down there. And the more you write about what's good and beautiful and happy, and that's what you keep getting returned back to you.
Absolutely. The magic with a pen and paper. There's always magic with that. And you also mentioned about communication. And I know communication can be especially tricky around those experiencing loss. And then based on your topic, sensitive words and sensitive times, what kind of advice do you have for expressing more like empathy and support effectively?
Well, that's kind of what I was mentioning earlier when I said that the public is generally kind of dismissive.
Yeah,
Is generally, and think about this, how many times have you heard somebody say, "I'm sorry for your loss"?
all
And
the time.
yeah, people seem to think that that's obligatory in some way, that if they see somebody for the first time after they've lost a loved one, they feel like they're supposed to say that, and they say that and then go on to the very next thing. And it's not particularly helpful. It sounds to me like somebody saying, "Have a nice day," or "How are you?" Nobody wants to know how you are,
You're
when they
right.
do that "How are you" thing. Uh, so it just sounds dismissive. So it's much better to personalize whatever you're doing when you're talking to somebody dealing with grief. For instance, um, if somebody said to me about Jacques, "I just loved his singing voice. It was so great. Whenever he was going to sing someplace, I made sure I was there because it was so beautiful listening to him." And I love that too. He also was the teacher that I mentioned, or professor at the college that taught that class to all the nurses. I'd run into him. We lived in a big community, and I'd run into him, to students that I didn't know. They knew who I was because I was his wife, and they'd come up to me and say, he changed my life. That class was the best class that I had in college." And saying something like that to somebody is wonderful. And I know people hesitate to say something about the person who has departed because they're afraid they're going to remind them that they're gone, or it's going to make them
Mhm.
unhappy because you're talking about something that's painful, and it's not painful if you approach it in a positive way. And
Mhm.
I know with Ron, people have told me so many times that he helped them so much because he was one of those problem solver kind of people. You could have a conversation with him, and by the end, everything was all fixed, because he just had a natural ability with that. And I still have people saying, "I don't know what I would have done if we wouldn't have had that conversation."
Mhm.
And that's so much healthier, so much better than saying something like, "He's in a better place," because I think the better place is with me right here.
Yeah.
When you kind of turn around the common things that people say, you go, "Wow, that really isn't too cool to say that."
You're absolutely right. I didn't think about that. Like, hey, you should be with me instead. That is the best place.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in my arms.
Yep.
I agree. Yeah, because I felt, and I'm guilty of this too. Like I sometimes I wouldn't know what to say. Like, what do I say? And then I would kind of shun away from them too because I felt awkward. So thank you for sharing how we can change our dialogue and just say, "Oh, hey, by the way, do you remember this time when, so and so?" And make it fun and make it like a good
Yeah.
memory that you cherish and that you'll hold on to forever. And so that's good. I'm so happy that you that you let me know how to go ahead and communicate properly. Because sometimes
Oh,
like, oh yeah, sorry for your I would be guilty of that, seriously.
yeah.
Because sometimes it's hard for me to like, how do I talk? And I feel nervous. I get nervous talking to somebody who just recently lost someone that they loved.
I just had an experience yesterday I just want to share with you. I
Yeah.
was in a meeting with some people that one of the people in the room knew Jacques. It was online, but she had known Jacques. And nobody else had met him. He was here long before all the new people that I know now. And one of the guys said something about wearing a tutu. And my friend said, "Oh, remember when Jacques wore that tutu in the melodrama?" That play, and everybody in town, they'd come up to him on the street, and because lots of people went to that melodrama and comment on him and his tutu, and they'd all laugh. And we had everybody in the room laughing
Oh, I
yesterday
love
about
that.
Jacques and his tutu. So,
It got me laughing too because I'm
yeah,
imagining it. That's so
you can just
cute.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cute. Yes, and it just it changes the mood when you bring laughter and joy inside. It just totally changes the mood, and everyone's happy and celebrating their life instead of just being so sad. Now, speaking of joy, Reclaim Your Joy offers guidance to live vibrantly after loss. Could you actually share one or two transformative tips that individuals can implement to start rediscovering joys in their lives?
One, excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold,
Oh,
so
no,
I'm
no
pretty scratchy
problem.
here.
It's okay.
Uh, uh, One of the things that I tell people first is to practice good self-care. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be smiling and laughing and stuff. So you really need to do that first. And then find a way that you can do something positive for somebody else, something you're going to feel good about. And with me, it was sharing these writing classes. And we'll get talking because we always talk about what we wrote. Well, I'll give them a prompt and then we write together and then we break into small groups uh, so everybody gets to share something about what they wrote. And by doing that, the people are finding things that they really are happy about, things that are making them feel better. And sometimes it's just the prompt. Like one time I had this inspiration and I'm not sure where I got it from, but what I told him that day was, imagine if you're going to write a children's book about grief and just write and they only write for like 10 minutes. So it's not like you're writing a whole outline or something. But what would you include in that book? Well, they loved it. I was surprised how what they got out of this and what they created in that short period of time. And they shared in their individual groups, and when they came back to the big room, and we always talk a little bit about, well, what'd you learn in your group? Everybody was wanting to share. Well, I did this and I did that, and they were smiling. And I've had several of them say, "Tell me, I'm still working on that book, and I'm going to get it published." And you wouldn't have thought something like that. So you need to put yourself in a place where there is joy, there is happiness. Don't deprive yourself of things that you know that in the past you've loved to do. Like I love to listen to live music. I'm going to a youth symphony concert this afternoon, but I also
Mhm.
love to go see jazz and I love to go listen to dance music and whatever kind of music. I just love music. And I enjoy that so much and it makes me happy. And so I search for places where I can go, where I can hear live music, where I can see the musicians as they perform. That I always play this little game. I like to sit as close as I can to where the musicians are performing, and I will look directly at them while they're performing. Because one thing that I've heard musicians say more than anything else is people don't pay attention when they're playing. you can go someplace because somebody's playing there that's really good, and everybody's trying to talk louder, so they'll be over the mics, you know. But
Yeah.
when you sit there and you look at them, they just really respond. They'll start like singing to you because they know they've got an audience. Even if it's an audience of one, they're singing to somebody who they know appreciates them, and it just enhances the experience for everybody. So find places that you can go and do things that either it's brought you joy in the past or it was something that you always wanted to do, and go there.
Yeah, go where it makes you happy, where it feels like at home, where it just like, oh, my spirit belongs here. It feels
Hmm.
good. Yeah. I had a funny story I'm going to share with you too. So my mom, well, she remarried. So I have a stepdad, and they just celebrated their silver anniversary, their 25-year anniversary. But they've already planned out. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. My mom loves planning parties. She's always planning parties. She's always, the event coordinator of everything. She planned my whole beautiful quinceañera when I was 15.
Yeah.
She just plans everything. She's so good at it too. I'm not so good at those things. But so she planned her whole funeral already, and even to the what the food is going to be served. I'm like, but she has so much joy in planning this. I'm like, mom. She even brought, so my stepdad and her brought my son, my older son, not the little ones, brought us to where they're going to be buried. She wants to be cremated, but my stepdad wants to be buried, and he was describing the suit he wants to wear, and they were laughing. They're like, yes, because it's over at a cemetery where you can kind of see everything. You can see the city. So yeah, you can come up here, and there you can see fireworks if we can spend fireworks with us for 4th of July. Or and they were so happy. I'm like, I've never seen anyone so excited about their space that they're going to rest in and sharing it with their family. But their attitude was just like so happy. So it made me like, okay, maybe I should be okay with this, but deep down I'm like, no, don't die anytime soon.
Yeah.
We need you. But anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. They were just so happy to share with us their resting spot.
I love that. And that's so healthy, so beautiful. I have a friend whose mother wanted to plan her service. And so they did quite a few years ago, actually. The two of them sat down and worked through the whole thing, the music, the food, the whole works, where it's going to be, what she's going to wear. And since then, they've gotten together every year to update it because
Wow.
she's now in her 90s. They didn't expect her to live that long, and things keep changing. And so they keep getting back saying, okay, what are we going to do this year?
Oh,
They
wow.
just have a great time with that together. And it's a good, healthy conversation to have with a loved one. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, yeah. So it made me feel better. Like, okay, if they're happy about it when they pass, then I should be happy for them if they're happy, because but I don't want them to go. I love them.
No,
I
that's
love
true.
them.
That's understanding too.
Yeah. Yes, but I was just going to ask you from your own experience, what is one common misconception people have about grief, and how do you address it in your speaking engagements?
Um, Well, because my thing is grief and happiness, the biggest common misconception that I see is people feel that they can't be happy while they're grieving, that it's
Mm.
somehow disrespectful, or what will people think of them if they smile when their husband died, or their dog died, or whatever the loss situation is. And sorry, um, what I talk about to help somebody with that is find ways that are easy to feel better. An example I like to use is of my aunt. I had one aunt who, she was just the sweetest person I ever met. She was a nurse and worked for a doctor in his office, and everybody in town knew her and loved her and felt like they were related to her. And she was just really wonderful. And when her 16-year-old grandson got his driver's license. They were going to go to a family party where everybody gets together and sings and barbecues and does that sort of thing. And they let him drive. They said it'd be cool if you would drive. And her husband sat in the front seat and she sat in the back seat. And they had a terrible accident. Her grandson wasn't hurt. Her husband was killed, and she was very severely injured. And watching her recover from that was amazing. And I went to see her one day, and I tell you how long ago this was. She had a VHS recording in the box thing.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, she had that right close to her, and it was of Patch Adams, the movie Patch Adams, which is, you can't help but laugh and smile at it. It's just a really, really good movie. And I said, "Oh, you watch that movie?" And she goes, "Yeah, I watch it often." She says, "Whenever I want to laugh or when I don't want to feel down or something, I'll just pop it in and it's laughing at the same things over and over again." But she knows she's going to laugh when she does it. And she knew how healthy it was for her to be in recovering from that tragedy, to be able to uh, smile and laugh. She said, it's good for me. I know it's good for me." And so that's how she chose to handle it. And there's lots of funny things out there now that you can do. Um, Being around people who love you, with whatever you want to do with that. Don't stay away from them. Don't shield yourself away, because that's a real common thing. People just won't go out. They won't do anything. But I had, like, after Ron died here, I hadn't been out much. And one of my neighbors, part of my ohana, came by one day and she goes, "We're going to the beach." You know, like she had towels and beach chairs and everything in the car, so I didn't have to get anything to bring with me. And I really didn't feel up to walking that much on the beach. Everybody talks so romantically about walking on the beach, but a lot of times there's a lot of soft sand and it's hard work.
It
And I
is.
thought, I'm not up to that today. I'm really not up to it. So she just plopped down one of her little beach chairs and she went for a really nice walk. And I sat there and just enjoyed the ocean. And it was so beautiful and it felt so good. And I thought, I don't have to have somebody tell me, drag me to the beach with them. I can go to the beach by myself. And I'm living in this incredibly beautiful place with marvelous beaches. There's no reason for me not to just go and sit in the sand and watch the water. It's such a beautiful thing to do. So when you know what can make you smile, or what can bring you happiness, or the people that you get together with. We haven't started this back up since the pandemic, but before the pandemic, several of us would get together to play games every once in a while, and it was always funny. We'd play Uno, and there's a advanced version of Uno Switch or Uno something, that you keep, if you draw a certain card, you reverse directions, and it's
Okay.
hysterical with what happens when you're doing it. And we would all laugh so hard, and that was so good for me. My sides would ache by the time I was over. So find something that's going to make you feel good. If you, one thing that I don't necessarily laugh at it, but my husband Ron loved chocolate chip cookies. And I can't tell you how many evenings after dinner was done and dishes were done and everything, and we sit down, he goes, "I'd really like some chocolate chip cookies." It's like, "Oh, I just cleaned the kitchen." But but I do it every time. I learned to make a big batch and scoop them up with like an ice cream scooper, and make individual ones on a pan and freeze them. And then once they were frozen, I could put them in a jar, or not a jar,
Mm.
in the freezer. And I could take one out, or two or three, however many he wanted, out at a time. And he had them practically every night once I figured out how to do that, because he just loved them. So sometimes I'll just make chocolate cookies because it'll remind me of how much he loved them and how cool it was to make the chocolate chip cookies for him.
Oh, that's so cool. That's a great idea, by the way. I'm gonna have to
Yeah, it
do that.
works
It's
really
portion
well.
control too. You're not making a whole
Yeah,
batch and then eating them, but it's like one at a time. Whenever you want to go ahead and create one, you just go in the freezer and then make it. And it's
yeah,
homemade. There's nothing better than homemade.
yeah.
That's great. And you've also created the grief and happiness cards. I love cards, by the way. There's always people use cards like as their daily inspiration, or, maybe as like even guidance sometimes. How
Hmm.
do you envision people using these cards and what impact do you hope they have?
Well, I had been trying to get these cards published in some way ever since I wrote those 52 notes to my friend to start off with. And finally, when this last book came out, I was talking to my publisher early on in the process of all that you do. And she goes, you talked about those cards in your book. She said, would you like to publish those cards? And I said, oh yeah, I want to publish those cards. So she helped me do it. And we finally got it. And you can see the picture of my book in the background. The card box cover looks very similar to that, but the cards are so beautifully done. They're not uh thin like playing cards are, where they're kind of pliable, you can move
Yeah.
them. They're on a heavier stock, and on one side it says whatever it is that I wrote, that to either encourage her, to help her feel happy, to whatever it was that I wrote on the card is on one side, with a beautiful design that they put around the edges with lots of plumerias, like the plumerias in my background here. And then on the other side, one thing I do when I go out for my walks is take pictures with my phone, because there's so much beauty here. And I have literally thousands of pictures that I've taken. And so I went through them and picked out 52 different pictures. So each one has a different picture of the beauty of the nature on Maui, from
So
beaches to sunsets to
pretty.
flowers. And they just, you look at them and it just is so pretty. You just kind of smile, because you see how pretty it is. And uh, the cards I've found are being used for two things mostly. One of them is a bereavement gift, that so many times they'll send flowers and then the flowers die within a couple of days and they're
Right.
forgotten about. Where with these cards, the person that you give them to can pull one out whenever they want to. And I have one friend right now that was affected by the Lahaina fires here on
Mm,
Maui. And she's pulling one out every day. And she says it doesn't matter if she's already read it before, she assumes that that's what she needed to hear that day. Instead
mhm.
of once a week, she pulls them out every day. And it's a beautiful bereavement grief. I'm getting my letters mixed up. Bereavement gift. There we go.
Yeah.
Beautiful bereavement gift. And it also, people buy them for themselves so that they can just pull one out when they want to and think
Mhm.
about it or journal about it. I know someone told me that she pulls it out and lets that be her journal inspiration for the day. After she reads it, that she'll write how she deals with whatever the subject is on it, or what she would like to do. And they're beautiful. And uh, also, all the profits from the cards and the books goes directly into the nonprofit organization to keep it going, so we can keep helping more people all the time.
Yes, that's beautiful. Now, can you actually tell us a little bit about the Grief and Happiness Alliance and its mission?
The Grief and Happiness Alliance it was what happened was, when I thought of this concept of grief and happiness and I mentioned it to people, they go, those two words don't go together. And I said, yes, they do.
Yes, you do.
So I thought, I want to incorporate this into my writing thing, but I've got to make sure that people are not going to be uh, poo-pooing it before it even gets off the ground. So I invited a bunch of people from different walks of life, different parts of the country that I've known through over the years, that I thought might be interested in doing this with me. And we did a little pilot program where we talked about what I was going to do. Then I had them sit through sample sessions, what it would be like. And then we talked about it afterwards. And that's where the idea for creating the nonprofit came up. But oh, and I got sidetracked. Oh, the Alliance, what it is. So we at that last meeting of that pilot group, one of the people there in this big, deep voice, I've never heard her talk that way before with this voice. And she said, "This is an idea whose time has come." And everybody in the room kind of agreed with that. And so we've been doing that. And we are, because it's free, anybody can come to it from any place. We have people from all over the world. Yesterday I had somebody from Italy and two people from
Wow.
England and two people from Canada, and then lots of, I tend to have a lot of Hawaiian people. Of course, got a big grief issue right here with
Mhm.
those fires. But people from all over come to it, and it doesn't cost anything. You just come, you make your reservation every week so we can send you the link and come. And that's all there is to it. And we've formed bonds, and we really like getting together with the other people. And I've had a couple of people from other countries saying, "We want to do something like that here." And in addition to the fact, when we did this pilot program, we did a survey to see what the best day and time would be for it. And so that what turned out to be the best is when we have the meetings now. But it doesn't serve everybody as far as times and days. And so since I'm in Hawaii, there's a certain part of the day that I can easily do it. But like the person from Italy was there at 10 o'clock last night, I think,
Yeah.
or something. And they'll stay up to come to it. But the person from Saudi Arabia is a little bit further away. And she said, "I just can't stay up that late. I'll come back when the time changes."
Yeah.
It'll still be late for her. But we
Yeah.
wanted to do different groups in different parts of this country to deal with the different days and the different time zones. And now we're looking and incorporating it into these to England in particular. They're very interested in doing it, and maybe Italy too. So
That's so neat. You're
it's,
going to be
yeah,
global. You're
yeah.
global. Not
Well, we
going to be.
really,
You are already.
yeah, we are. Like my last book, the Grief and Happiness Handbook, is an international bestseller. So I
Ah,
was looking at the statistics a couple of days ago, and the statistics of my podcast and who's listening, and it's people all over the world. So
awesome.
everybody has grief, and I think everybody down deep wants to be happy.
Absolutely. Now, where can our listeners go ahead and get your book, find your podcast, or even connect with you?
Well, all that, I have two websites, one with the name of each book. One is griefandhappiness.com, and the other one is lovingandlivingyourwaythroughgrief.com. And you can contact me through either one of those. The griefandhappiness.com has the link on it, or the invitation on it to sign up to get the link to come to the gatherings. And you can sign up from either one of those to my newsletter so that you can see all the different things that that are going on. I write a blog every week and do a long interview podcast and a short, uh, just me talking podcast every week. So in all those, I put in the newsletter so you can see which ones you want to listen to, and put other, like this podcast that I'm on, I can put in the newsletter for people to see, and events and things that we're doing. Like we just co-sponsored an international event called From Morning to Light.
Hmm.
That was just beautiful. It's 10 days with two speakers a day, and we had fabulous speakers, international speakers, dealing with different issues on grief. And that was such a wonderful thing. But we can do things like that, and that all is included in the newsletter, so you can always see what's going on, what's coming up. And if I see something special, I'll put that, that relates to that. I'll put that in there too, so they can sign up for the newsletter. They can get both my books and the cards on Amazon. Did I leave anything out?
Yeah, no, I think you got everything. And they can follow
Okay.
you on Twitter.
Yeah,
then
I'm not on Twitter anymore
oh,
since
okay. Scratch that
Twitter
part
is,
out.
yeah, Twitter's X, and I'm not there anymore. But I do have Instagram and LinkedIn. I do a lot there. We actually have a Facebook group just for the Grief and Happiness Alliance, if people want to join that Facebook group, and my own page on Facebook, Emily Thiroux Threatt. So I'm out there on a lot of different social media.
Yeah, and I will put everything also in the show notes for everyone to have easy access. So that way you can just click and then find you easily and find your book,
Thank you.
podcast, everything will be easily set up in there. Now, finally, for someone who's listening right now and who is navigating their own journey through grief, what would be your message of hope or encouragement to them?
Besides practicing good self-care, because I always emphasize that first, I would like them to know that every day, every single day, things get a little better. And you might not notice it as it's going along, but it really is getting better as you go along. And when you're mindful and live in the moment and know that right now in this moment, you're okay, you're here, and you you're getting through all these different emotions and things. So just take it one step at a time and know that it will get better and better and better, and you'll be surprised. I thought I would never be happy again after Jacques died, and then I was happy with Ron. I was really happy, and after he died, I thought, oh, okay, now where's that going to go? I can tell you that now that I'm doing all this work and I've really found my purpose, I'm happier now than I ever have been. So people who are dealing with grief right now, find what it is that makes you happy and go there.
Love that. It's so beautiful, Emily. Well, thank you so much for being on my show. I'm sure our listeners are feeling better already by listening to
Oh,
your
good.
voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.